like, comment, and subscribe.
Okay, people. I get questions around conspiracy theories every day now. So for you guys, I'll yet again address conspiracy theories and what they really are about. Because the conspiracy theories in themselves are not interesting. It's more looking at them as a phenomenon, both from a biological perspective and a spiritual perspective. So let's start with our DNA. I've talked about this before in different settings, but I'll try to be as clear as possible. This is religion. And the thing is, in our brains, we have religious functions. It's not connected to what we call organized religion. Organized religion is a result of our brain functions. So let's start with the beginning. To survive as a life form, and as this life form developed into humans, understanding the world and how it works became a necessity. To navigate in the world, you need to collect memories and experience. But beyond that, you have to connect the dots. Because if you have one experience in one setting and the same type of experience in yet a different setting, you need to have the ability to imagine that, oh, maybe this also applies to that setting. Maybe this is a general rule. So you are supposed to be able to connect the dots and imagine, okay, how can this be? How does this work when the setting is different? You need to be able to navigate. So when you have encountered, a dangerous animal, like a bear, for instance, you need to be able to imagine that all of them are dangerous. Otherwise, you would just look at that one individual, and the next time, you would walk right into it yet again. So, our brains are designed to make assumptions and connections. And we build brain maps. You build your map about the world, about how things work, and how to survive, how to navigate in it for the best result. So, when you have a point of reference, and you have another point of reference, your mind will draw the line between those two dots, making assumptions about what this means. That's religion. The thing is, if you think of it, you're drawing the map, right? And you need to understand your landscape. You will have to make assumptions, okay, like there's a rock here, most likely there's more rocks between those two rocks. So our religious brain is there to make stories and assumptions that you then are supposed to test. But until you test, you need to relate to what you think you understand, because that will help you. It's better than nothing. So when you have a point of reference here and a point of reference there, you will make up the rest and you will gradually test it out and it will become real. You will be able to fill it out correctly. What we see as more of the religious part of the brain is when your points of reference are like far away from each other. It means that the assumptions that you create between those 2 points, it will be based on your own experience, your own beliefs, your own ability to analyze and fantasize and imagine. because you don't really know. Like when they're too far apart, you have to use your imagination. But you're designed to relate to it because that's all you've got. And that will be part of your map. And then you will navigate based on that map, and then you will correct it as you go along. Right. So understand this is part of how we operate, how we have survived as a life form successfully. It's also how this life form has developed into one that is really good at adapting because we can imagine. So if you think of religion as imagination turned into a map, you can navigate and then you're supposed to test. Now, the religious part, therefore, is the first step. It is supposed to be replaced with knowledge. This also, see, when it comes to religion, it's mostly for ignorant people. People who have a lot of knowledge. I mean real knowledge, not a lot of belief, but knowledge, fact, science. They are less religious because they test out their assumptions. They understand that, oh, okay, I can have an assumption, I can have an idea, but I need to test them out to figure out what is real and what is not real. But just like in science, it starts out with an idea, it starts out with an assumption. And that's religion, it's the ability to imagine and create up a story. And then you have a methodology to test it out and figure out, is this actually real or not? The challenge in life is that often, like throughout evolution, we did not have the opportunity to do so. And for evolutionary purposes, if you think of a life form consisting of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of individuals, you will make an assumption and you will live and act based on it. If it works, you will survive. If you're wrong, you die. So it's all good. For the evolution of a life form, this works. So you're supposed to trust your map. If you end up dying, not a big deal for the life form. If you survive, it meant that, yeah, you were right. And then that way of thinking turned out to be true. It will become part of the DNA. It will become part of the life form. So it is, when it comes to humans as a life form, it's beneficial to make up stuff and insist and live based on it and then survive or die. Now, as we developed as a life form and society became more complex, the whole thing became a little bit more difficult to relate to. Now, if you think of like the religious brain is supposed to help you in understanding that, oh, there's a wild animal in the jungle somewhere, based on your experience, based on your ability to imagine, based on your mind maps, you make an assumption, and that can help you. So, when societies start operating as a group, as a society, where are the dangers? What are the things you can't see, but you need to relate to? Okay? That's the purpose of it, connecting the dots. And our brains are designed to continuously try to connect the dots because we're drawing our maps. And it's not about truth. This is the interesting thing. We're not designed to relate to truth. We are designed to relate to assumptions that we imagine and that we then test out. So when we imagine that there is something going on behind the scenes, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Our brain's DNA will only respond to chemicals as the definition of something being true. True, for this life form means it will help you survive, most likely. So you get chemicals to support that sense, that feeling, that thought, that belief. It's not about whether or not it's true. It's based on the assumption that this will help you survive. It's not only based on your experience and personal memory, but also your kind of DNA memory. So whenever you have drawn something in your mind map, yeah, this is probably right, you will get chemical support. And you're designed to respond to your brain chemicals. And this is why people feel that they can feel truth. Oh, it's my truth. It feels right, right? So whenever you imagine something negative, you will get more chemical response than when you imagine something positive. Why? Because when you imagine something negative, that can kill you. When you imagine something positive, life goes on. It's not that important. Throughout evolution, remember that everything used to be dangerous. Most kids never grew up. Life was extremely dangerous. So, emphasizing danger and for us to respond to danger and stories of danger has been important. Remember that most fairy tales, most stories have been about how to deal with different forms of fear and danger and how to overcome them. So creating narratives and stories around danger, about survival, and for instance in religion, giving people the reason why they shouldn't be doing certain things and why they should be doing others without people understanding why. Because some deity told them. And if you don't, you will be punished. Helpful. If you don't understand why something is dangerous, you simply should not do it because it could kill you. So, whenever you assume something to be dangerous, you're supposed to have a stronger chemical reaction and a stronger chemical reaction to that memory, to that assumption, to that narrative. And it's supposed to trigger you. Belief is important. The thing is, as we developed as a group animal, we lived in groups, we became people living in communities, we became specialized, which means that one person would hunt, one would maybe grow food, one would fix things, one would guard, you would have different functions. That developed into us having to trust each other for survival, which means we had to trust what other people tell us. When someone came to us and said, this is dangerous, we would have to trust them. When someone says, the enemy is coming, we would have to trust them. And we would have to trust their stories, their narratives, because our life would depend on it. So we are programmed to trust each other's stories, narratives, and assumptions. So when you have this sense that, oh, something spooky is going on, you have the right chemicals, more people are sharing it, it triggers a very deep sense of survival, which makes you feel this is true. Because based on evolution, most likely it will help you. So negativity in a collective setting, based on a story of what you can't see, it triggers you in a most, almost irresistible way. Because not being part of it, because when we got specialized, there was so much information we didn't understand anymore. We basically outsourced most of the jobs connected to our own personal survival. So we have to trust, we have to relate to it. So it feels good, it feels that yes, we are surviving now because we find out what the truth is. It's religion. And the challenge is when society grew bigger. the thoughts about what's going on, who is in control, and what their intentions are. When you can't see them, you are supposed to make up stories because your brain will always have to connect the dots, always have to create a map, although it's flawed. It doesn't matter. It's just get the assumptions down on paper in your mind. So as we grew more and more specialized, we understood less and less. We were able to test out less and less. And instead, we developed this whole body of thoughts and actions called religion. So we could just trust that, yeah, there is cohesiveness. Beyond all of this, there is someone or something that knows what it's doing. We can all feel safe. And the negative thoughts, if you look at most religions, they're based on the negative thoughts. If you look at Christianity, do this or else. You are doomed by default, but if you do these things and these things and these things, you may be saved. We are drawn to negative thoughts and energies as part of our survival strategies. As society grew bigger, we could not test, is this true or isn't it? Which is the purpose of religious thinking. It's connecting the dots and then testing. When things became too big, we couldn't. So we could only do the first step. And that confuses the brain, which means we have to then relate to other people and ask them. And then we get their mind maps, their religious thoughts, and there we go. So what's the antidote? What is the next step? As I said, knowledge. Testing things out for real. Then you will know. Religion is a state of ignorance. Therefore, conspiracies is a state of ignorance because assumptions, stories that make you feel important, that you're part of something important, it's just chemicals. And people have religious needs. Many of the old religions don't work anymore because they don't fit our modern way of life. Conspiracies do. One thing that's also important to notice is that people who are already religious are mostly the ones subscribing to conspiracy theories. And among religious people, I also include many people involved with modern spirituality. When you are belief-based, when you subscribe to a belief, a religious belief, the point of it often is to accept belief without proof. Accept the story without evidence. So not needing evidence becomes a sign or a proof that you are a true believer. And when you transfer that to how you view the world, you will relate to conspiracy theories and you don't care about facts. They're not relevant to your brain chemicals. They're not relevant to how you create the first level of your mind maps. And when you have created a culture where facts are simply in the way, you don't need them. Because you only show your true dedication when you don't need evidence. Those people will most likely not only be in religion, but also subscribe to conspiracy theories. When you move beyond ignorance, which means learning critical thinking, learning how to investigate, how to deal with information, get knowledge, you get to the next level. The thing is, the religious brain is there. It will never go away. But we need to understand that it's the first level of how to relate to information. In science, you start with the religious assumption and then you test it out. We need more knowledge. The thing is, in this society today, we are exposed to so much information, so many opinions, so much this and that. Our brains are not designed to understand the difference between an opinion and a fact. Because for our survival, it's down to who do you trust. If you are in a group, you have to trust them. You have to trust their narratives. If someone, in your little community a couple of thousand years ago came running back and said, the enemy is coming, you wouldn't say like, okay, I need proof. I was just like in the middle of, making breakfast here. You need to trust them, right? And this is what's happening. When we have so much information, it's impossible for our brain to understand what is what. Too many levels. We're not genetically designed for this. And what happens when we are confused? What do we always do when we are confused? In our brains, our emotions, we trust our chemicals. It's the go-to that has been part of the human life form forever. It's how a life form will navigate through chemicals. It's fear, it's hunger, it's thirst, it's being horny. It's chemicals telling you what to do. When you suddenly become afraid, it's because there is a danger somewhere. It used to be that way. But today, because we live in a different world, we can get anxiety, seemingly for no reason. It's simply because we're not able to interpret things right. But when we are confused and there's too much, our brains will always kind of take a step back and start listening to the chemicals and use that. And whatever triggers your chemicals the most, that's what you will relate to. And stories about what's going on behind the scenes, like what triggers the religious brain, that will always work. It is difficult today to not be ignorant because the sheer volume of information is beyond our wildest imagination. And because we have no sense of truth and untruth because it's not relevant to our survival, we only relate to what triggers us chemically. This is why when it comes to news, information, whatever, we click on whatever triggers our chemical response system. That's what we do, and that becomes how we see the world. And we're so easy targets, and we're all built like this. The only way to get to the next level is education, knowledge, facts, science. And what you also see, if we go back to this starting from the moment we became specialized, that means living in communities, everyone having their designated functions and jobs. How to expand our intelligence is by becoming well-rounded, knowing, being knowledgeable in many different fields at the same time. So science, politics, arts, sports, whatever, but that we go into different spaces in ourselves. What happens then is we have kind of different ways of kind of creating this echo chamber in our minds where things will be reflected based on different types of knowledge, different type of structure, different ideas. And this is what it means to reflect. To reflect, you cannot have an empty mind. You need to have the walls in place, and that is being knowledgeable in different areas. Then you can take your assumption and you can use knowledge and intelligence and kind of test it out. You can navigate. Being ignorant and thinking that you should operate based on feelings will make you an easy target for these kind of things. And remember that we have now collectively groomed ourselves and each other to become even more controlled by our chemicals than a few decades ago. Through advertising, that's only trying to trigger your chemicals into wanting something. News, whatever is shocking, whatever triggers fear, whatever is negative. Politics, polarization, always the negative angle. We sell through fear. We communicate through fear and outrage. Social media, it's the same. It's chemicals, chemicals, chemicals. And we're ignorant because of it. Because when we rely too much on our chemicals, we go into the most primitive part of our brains. And we think we can feel what truth is. We can't. We can feel what our assumptions about our own mind map is. We cannot feel truth. So we need to learn to think again. We need to learn to develop our intelligence again. And you see in both religions and modern spiritual communities, people don't have a lot of education. They're ignorant. Their understanding of their world and science is based on these emotional chemical narratives. And people are gullible and willing to believe absolutely anything as long as it makes them feel good or bad, if it triggers this sense of survival. But it means that we are trapped. We're trapped in our own brain chemicals. We're trapped in these fantasy stories. And it does not bring the world forward. It brings it backwards, because the more you rely on your chemicals, the more primitive you become. I've explained this many times, but chemicals are binary. Which means those feelings of outrage, or fear, or hate, or any strong urges, they're binary. And it means it's black and white, right or wrong. It becomes extremely polarized. And that triggers even more chemicals. And you see, if you want to communicate in the world today, you have to be polarizing, because people are already that primitive. If you're able to look at things from different perspectives, people are not interested anymore. And this is the big problem that each and every one of us is facing. We are becoming less intelligent. We're becoming more primitive. We are becoming more binary in the way we think. Either you're for something or against it. We become more aggressive. We become more ignorant. And we see negativity everywhere, because that triggers even more chemicals. It's not lifting the planet, it's pulling it down. I've always said that the big threat to this planet and to the civilization is not the environment. It's that humans are becoming less intelligent. And we are. Science will support this. We are becoming less intelligent. And as we become more and more primitive, trying to handle an increasingly complex world, that's not a good combo. When everyone thinks that they are experts, that they can feel what truth is, it's not a good combo. We make unintelligent decisions in our own lives, and we elect politicians that are polarizing and that operate in the same binary kind of chemical reality. It's not enough to just meditate. Educate yourself. Understand why you are addicted, why you connect so much with conspiracy theories. It's not about them, the theories in themselves. It's about your own chemicals, your own DNA, your own brain. It's your addiction. It's not truth. But it makes you feel good, But it's dangerous. It lowers your consciousness. And this is why it's so funny to me when I watch people in spiritual communities embracing conspiracy theories. It lowers the consciousness because it makes it binary. When you become someone who responds to your own chemicals and you guide yourself through life and how you see the world based on your own chemicals, you're letting your DNA take over, which is the opposite of spiritual work. Spiritual work today is so much about transcending your DNA, transcending the physical form and the limitation of the human body and brain. And then you're doing the opposite. So try to just look at this. We need today to understand evolution, to understand ourselves as a life form. We need to understand why we function certain ways. And many things that people think are spiritual are actually biological. We need to understand the difference between our biology, our DNA, and our true consciousness. We need to understand science. We need to move out of ignorance. Because if you're ignorant about the world, you will be a religious person. You will live your life based on beliefs. Relate to science. Relate to facts. Educate yourself in as many directions as possible. And when I say educate yourself, I'm not talking about reading stuff on Facebook. I mean going to the university and actually get degrees in stuff, and become an individual that is guided by facts and knowledge. And also with the understanding of how we function, the mechanisms in DNA, brain, emotions, and actions. This is part of our lifetime. This is part of this lifetime, the life form and the expression. We need to understand it. And one thing I think is extremely important to understand here. I would like you to reflect on this. When you are obsessing about thoughts and stories about other people's negative intention, when you create stories of fear and where you believe that thousands and millions of people are agents of evil, doing evil things, and you talk about it, and you accuse other people of this, and you're spewing out that level of negativity, who is being the agent of evil? You are. You are becoming and being the exact thing you're claiming to fight. You are the source of evil. You are the one bringing darkness to the world based on a fantasy. You can never truly understand other people's intentions, other people's journeys. Remember that whatever other people do, it's part of their journey. It's their karma. They have the right to go through whatever it is they need to do to learn. We exist both as individuals. We also exist in this society. We have many different functions and levels based on our level of consciousness, based on our karma, based on our journey. And you are attacking that and saying that is evil. We incarnate together because we need each other. The only purpose in existence is to promote growth and healing. Throughout our lifetimes in evolution, we do the most horrendous things to each other and to ourselves. It's part of the journey. We only begin developing a sense of true spiritual healing when we have injured ourselves and others enough. It's part of it. So when you see someone in a destructive intention, It's because that's where they are in their evolution. They will grow. They will heal like everyone else. And remember, you chose to incarnate here. This is the world you wanted to incarnate into because this is the place where you can grow and heal the most. So there is nothing wrong with the world. There is nothing wrong with anyone. Everybody's just trying to walk their own path and figure it out. And we have so many different intentions. We can act out of pain, suffering, joy, greed, fear, happiness, love. And most of us will have all these intentions inside of us. And when you label someone as he is like this, it's religion, it's primitive, and it's evil. You are responsible for your own life, for your own lifetime, no matter what. You are the only responsible agent. You are the only true creative agent in the world. As you know, you should know by now, the world is simply a mirror. You can only experience what is in accordance with your own karma. You can only experience your own mirror image. So if you experience something to be negative, well, it's a mirror of yourself. When you want to blame, you're playing the victim. Conspiracy theories is organized victim consciousness. That's all it is. Grow out of it. Be a force of positive. Be a force of love. And that means acknowledge each and everyone's path, no matter what it is. Accept all expressions. Never see someone from where they are, but see where they are going. See the unfoldment, see the potential, and understand whatever someone is doing is because that is a necessary experience they need to have. And the receiver of that action wanted to be part of that spiritually because that's what he or she needed. Never judge. There is only growth, healing, and love in the universe. Your intentions, if you are on a spiritual path, should be one of love, growth, and healing, of having absolute respect for each individual, each level, each group, each expression. Embrace the world for what it is, with all these different levels and intentions. It's spiritual unfoldment in action. The only thing you can do to truly influence the world is to channel in love, to be an example of light, to be an example of healing. And then you don't judge. You let other people be because it's none of your business. You unfold your potentials so that others may mirror themselves in it. In this world, you always get what you are, not what you want. You get what you are. Everything you experience is a direct mirroring of you. There is nothing else going on. You can't blame anyone. Projecting your victim consciousness is not healing. Choose to be a vehicle of love. Choose to be a vehicle of true consciousness. And that means grow beyond the level of your own DNA and your own biology. and stop being part of this primitive religion that we see as a cancer in the world today.